Stump. Well, it's great to be with you this morning. I don't know what your week was like, but mine was sensationally wonderful, wonderfully sensational. We had a crew of folks head down to Burpengary on Thursday. So June and Judy went down, left a little bit earlier, and then we had Sharon and Val went down as well, and there was Tim and myself and Scott and Rebecca, and went down. When I say went down, we went to Burpengary Baptist Church, and there's been a bit of a prayer movement happening there for around 7 years, and it was quite sensational. And when I walked in there the last time, it was kind of like, holy smoke, this is just wow. And I quickly then, after I caught my breath, went over to sit on the floor in the corner before I fell over. The sense of God's presence was just amazing. This time we get there, open the door, walk in, and I see this amazing table spread from one side of the place we were meeting to the other. And I turned to the associate pastor and said, "You have got to be joking." I said, "This is Luke 14, the banqueting table." And her face fell off, because that was the devotion she was bringing. But you see, I preached Luke 14 last Sunday, the banqueting table of God. And there's always room for one more at the table. It's just a coincidence, do you think? Yeah, nah, not at all. Absolutely an amazing time. And it kind of fits into what I'm going to talk a little bit about this morning, boys. I've got probably my favourite of all of Jesus' stories we'll be talking about today, just by way of, and some of you might have seen on Facebook, I put up a few, what do they call emojis? Emojis. So I put up an emoji that looked really angry and cranky and mad, and then I put up another emoji that looked like it was, no, he went very, very bad. And then another, I'm not going to spoil the story for you. I'm going to tell you the story. And it's from Luke chapter 15. What's really amazing over the last few weeks, we've kind of been talking a little bit about the journey home. And God and his insistent invitation to want that there's always room for one more at the table. And we revisited that on Thursday morning at the banqueting table. It was just an amazing time at Burpengary. The fascinating thing about the story at the banqueting table, we actually see the master in Luke 14 saying to the servant, "You go and you kind of, with my sincere invitation, you bring the people in." But what's really fascinating in that story, we don't really see anything more of the Father except that he is the one who sends the invitation. But in this story, it's kind of, we get a bit more of an inkling, a bit more of insight into the welcoming Father. And that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. So have a listen to this story that Jesus tells, because there'd been a lot of men and women, doubtful reputation, who were hanging around Jesus, and they were listening to everything he said, but there were also the religious ones, the Pharisees, the ones that were trying to trip him up, and they weren't pleased. And Jesus used stories, and so this story is the story entitled The Lost Son. It goes like this. Then he said, "There was once a man who had 2 sons. The youngest said to his father, 'Father, I want right now what's coming to me.'" So in other words, he actually says to his dad, "I want my half of the inheritance." But what he was actually saying was, "Dad, I wish you were dead." That's the gravity of what he was saying. Now, none of us want to wish our dads dead, do we? No. But that's what this boy was saying in Jesus' story. So, listen to the father. The father graciously divided the property between the two. It wasn't long before the younger son packed his bags and left for the distant country. There, undisciplined and irresponsible, he wasted everything he had. And after he'd gone through all his money, there was a bad famine all through that country, and he began to hurt. He signed on with a citizen. So this is a Gentile. So we've got a Jewish young man who's now working for a Gentile boss. He signs on to, interestingly, to this citizen who assigned him to the fields to feed the pigs. Now that's so disrespectful for the Jews. They're pretty particular about what they will and won't do, and pigs, they're certainly not considered to be kosher. They're not considered to be a clean animal. Jews would have nothing to do with pigs. They don't eat pork, they don't eat bacon. I'd never be a Jew. But anyway, there we go. So he was so hungry, he would even have eaten the corn cobs and the pig slop, but no one would give him any. That brought him to his senses. He said, all those farmhands working for my father sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am starving to death. I'm going back to my father. I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand. He got right up and went home to his father when he was still a long way off. And this is the bit that I'd really like us to understand today. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him, his heart pounding. He ran. Now, we need to understand a middle-aged Middle Eastern man, they do not run. It's very undignified. But this father runs. And the question is why? And hopefully if you've read the front of your bulletins, we get a bit of an insight into what that's about. But this father runs, embraces him, kisses him. The son started his speech, Father, I've sinned against God, I've sinned before you, I don't deserve to be called your son. But the father wasn't listening. He was calling the servants, quick, bring a clean set of clothes and dress him, put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, then get a grain-fed heifer. Tim, we're coming to your place for a grain-fed heifer. No, a grass-fed, brother. They're beautiful, beautiful beef. But grass-fed heifer, not quite as much fat in them, but a lot more intense flavour, gorgeous. And here we go. Great, and roast it. Yo-ho, get out the spit. We're going to feast. Now, do you see a bit of a theme happening from last week to this week? There's a feast. We're going to feast. We're going to have a wonderful time. My son is here, given up for dead and now alive. Get up, given up for lost and now found. And they began to have a wonderful time. So in Jesus' story, there's a number of fascinating elements that we actually see in this story. So the young son, he goes to his dad and he says to him, listen, I want my inheritance and I want it all and I want it now. And so this guy, he really kind of made an art form of the mess up. And you might have seen an emoji that kind of looks something like this with a red face through the week on the Boys Brigade Facebook page. Well, this guy was definitely, he wasn't a happy camper actually. And you see, I've kept it to 3 letters this time so I can spell it out really easy and not get lost like Brockness last time. But this guy is totally mad. He's cranky. He wants what's coming to him and what's coming. And what's really interesting about this story, boys, because I'm only telling the first half of the story, but what's really interesting, even as Jesus tells the story, the older brother should have come to the younger son, to the younger brother, and said, listen, mate, you can't behave like this. This is dishonourable. You're dishonouring our father. But the silence of the older brother in Jesus' story at this point is incredibly deafening for what it's saying, that all was not right at home. It's fascinating. But the younger brother, well, he was pretty mad. But isn't it fascinating that the way Jesus crafts the story, and he tells the story that the father graciously, he actually divides up the lot between the 2 boys, and off into the distant country he goes in wild living. And, well, this fella, quite frankly, he wasn't spending time with the right sort of person. There's a bit of a saying, and you can talk to Marty, and not that Barney knows anything about, having fleas, but they say if you hang out with dogs, you catch fleas. Well, I know Barney well enough to know he doesn't have any fleas. But what that saying is all about is the people you hang out with tell you a whole lot about you. And so we've got to, oh, hang on, I forgot his eyebrows. It's all in the eyebrows, folks. It's all in the eyebrows. So this young fella, he completely squandered all of his father's wealth, and he was really bad. Bad to the bone. Bad. How are we going so far? No spelling mistakes today, fellas? We on track? See, I can do 3 letters. I get these bigger words, I get lost in them, but 3 letters I can do. But then, because he spent all this time and all this hanging out, looking for the endless party, and eventually the money ran out, and, well, he then hired himself out to a landowner. And what do you reckon that ad might be? What do you think? What do you think that? Yes, Malachi, you're a prophet. He is, right? And so we've actually got the bloke. He looks pretty sad, doesn't he? And he's even got to the point where he wants to eat the pig food. He's absolutely penniless, working for this Gentile. It just, not only so, but feeding the pigs, but not only so, wanting to eat the pig food. You. No? Yeah? Okay, we'll keep on going then. Because this is the good part about that. This isn't the end of the story. Remember the 4 emojis on the Facebook page? You remember that? There was the bloke that was mad, and there was the bloke that was sad, and then there's the bloke that was bad, the bloke that was sad, but then there was the bloke. Well, you reckon you could guess what the last word might be before I fill it in? Happy? Well, yeah, happy. What's another way to say happy that might rhyme with mad, sad, bad, sad? What's another word? Happy? Yeah, happy. Happy's a good word. I'm happy with happy. I am happy with happy, but this one only has enthused. No, you want me to make a spelling error, don't you? You just want me to mess it right up. Well, come on, work with me. The second letter might give it away, because we're still going with the ad theme. What do you reckon? What do you reckon that? Yes, Malachi? See, you got it in one. I knew you could do it, Malachi. Hunter, I bet you were going to say glad as well, weren't you? Yeah, I knew that. And you see, I can even spell glad with a G. Look at that. No spellos this morning. Hey, we're on track. We're going well. But this young fella, he comes to his senses and he remembers, look, even my dad, the servants get 3 meals a day. I'm actually going to say, go home. I'm going to own my stuff. I'm going to take, because previously he had wanted all the freedom without the responsibility, and he'd blown all of the wealth. But now he kind of comes to his senses and says, you know something, I reckon I need to take some responsibility here. And he goes home with the idea that he's going to make this big spiel to his dad. Hey, Dad, you know, I've sinned against heaven. I've sinned against you. I've sinned against me. I've sinned against everybody. I've made an art form of the stuff up. But my dad will take me back in. But you know something? The Father, and this is the beautiful picture that the Luke 14 banquet doesn't show us of the heart of God. Yeah, sending the servants out with the invitation, a sincere invitation to come home. But we don't see anything of this Father's heart, of his pining. We see the joy of the banquet, and we see that the banquet, there's plenty, always room. What's that? Always room for one more. Absolutely. But we don't see anything of the Father's heart apart from the feast and the provision and the invitation. But in this story, we actually see a Father who runs towards his returning son, towards his returning daughter, the one who knows what's coming, because we've had a parade today, and I hope you read the front of your bulletins and newsletters, but if you haven't, this has been a parade of honour. But not every parade is that. And the Israelites, they had a nasty little thing called kazaza, which was all about a parade of dishonour. And they'd get the children with a shell-like gourd, and they'd fill it with sticks and stones and peanut husks and rotten apple core and other stuff that was worthless. And they'd throw this out in front of the returning person, which was saying, worthless. Little Adam has lost his father's inheritance. They were nasty. That was nasty. But then it wasn't just the kids that did that. The adults set themselves up in two lines, like a parade of dishonour. And the prodigal, the returning person, would walk through, and they would beat him with sticks and stones to reinforce the message of worthless, you are worthless. But this Father, knowing what the community is like, he runs to his son. He embraces his son. He shelters his son. The son's wanting to make this spiel, and the dad says, listen, go, get the celebratory jacket, put it on him. Get the sandals, get the family ring, put it on, remind him he is my son, she is my daughter. And in doing so, inviting all of that displeasure to himself. Doesn't that speak to us a little bit? Something that we talked about, that Tiana talked about a little bit earlier. This God who stands in our stead to remove what is wrong so that what is right can be restored. Because the fact of the matter is, we are all, every single one of us, not one of us is any different to the other. We are all kind of in life trying to find our way home. We're actually trying to get ourselves from this place to the next place. And you know something? I'm probably going to run out of a bit of space here, but that's all right. We're going to make this work. We're all trying to get from here to there, but unfortunately, what letter is that? Can you see that? Unfortunately, I get in the way. And you see, because I'm separated from God, I'm a little bit like this broken paintbrush. And whilst there's no spelling errors this time, the brockness is still very, very real. Did you like that, Tiana? Yeah, the brockness. But it's true. And you know something? We try to find our way around the brockness, and we duck and we weave. Some of us even try to not admit that there's brockness there. But you know something? The problem is the I is still in the way. And the simpleness that I can explain to you of this welcoming Father that we see in this story of Jesus, when he invites the community displeasure upon himself, and he invites his son in to the party and throws a party. It's actually a party that celebrates life. And that's the invitation of God. So not only is God the orchestrator behind the sending out to welcome people from the highways and the byways to this amazing banquet that he sets. And boys and all of your families and friends, we actually, my grandson had his second birthday yesterday afternoon. We got all the leftovers, and you know how good birthday party leftovers are the next day, okay? So you're really, really welcome to come to the party. Come to the party, because there's always room for one more at the table. Always. How often? Always. There's always room for one more at the table, because you see, Jesus created the space. It wasn't about the young fella and the spiel that he was making to the Father. It was about the Father's love, who welcomes him home, taking upon himself all of that displeasure, so that his Son could truly live and be alive in his family. This is the heart of God. God has been banging on with us for the last how long? About his welcoming heart, about all that he has done. And so, if you haven't yet responded to his invitation to come home, to come to the party. And the interesting bit is here, the interesting bit in this passage, and I am a dumb guy. Anyway, at the end of the story, they said, roast the heifer and throw a party. Our God just can't help but throw a party in your honor. In your honor. A party with your name on it. You know something, Sebastian? There's a party, there's a table, and there's an invitation with your name on it. With your name on it. There is. I am 5. Yep. You are 5, and God knows every one of those and the rest of them. That's right. So we're going to pray. Let's give thanks to God for his grace among us, for our second Fraser Coast Boys Brigade family. We love you. We're so grateful we can have these moments to share with you. Thank you for coming. Join us, please, at the party. Come to the party. Let's pray. Father, so grateful for your mercy and your grace, that you take our brockness on yourself, that you actually remove death and sin from the world, that we can know life, that we don't have to be mad, bad, or sad, but that we can actually find ourselves completely satisfied when we come to your table. I pray for each one here this morning, Lord, that we may respond to your invitation, to your party, we might take our rightful place in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay.